This woman was in her own house, minding her own business, when these two young boys decided that it was time for her to die. Mrs. Sadikat Onooluwapo was a 62-year-old retired teacher who was brutally murdered and robbed by two young boys in her own house on the 14th of November 2023 while she was peacefully sleeping. This incident was said to have happened in Semiloluwa area in Ondo State.
How many of you that time? Only you. Okay, yeah. So, did you see anybody in the cover at that time? Nobody.
Because of food. Because they won't collect food. There's only the
According to the story, it was said that Mrs. Sadikat lived by herself along with her granddaughter. It is also possible that other members of her family lived with her, but around the time of this incident, it is believed that she lived alone by herself with her granddaughter, who was probably old enough to go to school alone. Despite living mostly by herself, it was also said she hired a housekeeper, an employee named Oluwaseun. Now, Oluwaseun did not live with her. Oluwaseun had her own place, but she came to the house every now and then to do her job. And sometimes it was also said that Oluwaseun, the housemaid, would come to work with her 18-year-old son named Mubarak. Now, Mubarak, suspectedly the one in yellow, would help his mother time to time in cleaning and managing the house of Mrs. Sadikat. And in one of those visits, Mubarak saw that Mrs. Sadikat had gotten a new mobile phone that was worth 80,000 naira. It was a sighting of this mobile phone that turned this 18-year-old boy into the monster he had become. So on that day, the 14th of November, on a Tuesday, maybe after his mother was done with her job for that day, it said that Mubarak mobilized another of his friends, 20-year-old Reliwan, I'm sure the one in white. And knowing the activities of Mrs. Sadikat's house, Mubarak was well calculated. Since Sadikat lived with her granddaughter and the granddaughter usually goes to school by herself, Mubarak waited for the girl to go to school. And just when he figured that only Mrs. Sadikat would be alone in the house, he and his friend decided to strike. It was said they climbed the fence, went straight into her house, into her bedroom where they saw her sleeping in peace. It's not detailed how the altercation progressed. Rather than just stealing the mobile phone, it was said these two boys attacked this woman, hitting her with an object before stealing the mobile phone and the box. After successfully stealing the phone, they walked out of the house as normal, without raising any suspicion. It was later on in the day when Mrs. Sadikat's granddaughter came back from school. Maybe she was the one that was supposed to pick the girl up from school, but that didn't happen. But when the girl got home, she saw her grandmother lying lifeless on the floor. It was the granddaughter who raised the alarm to call all the neighbors to come and see what had happened to her grandmother. At first, they thought maybe it was an illness, or maybe she had an attack, or if someone had used her for rituals. It was later on that they discovered that her mobile phone was missing, that they knew that someone had come to rob her. And that was when the police picked up from in their investigation. The first suspect the police had in mind was a housekeeper, Mrs. Oluwaseun, as she was the only one who also had access to the house, and most likely the only one who had been in the house earlier that day. However, when the police were able to trace Mrs. Sadikat's mobile phone, it was traced to Mubarak's hand, who, is 18 years old and clearly would not even know where else to go after stealing the phone. So it didn't take long, or it wasn't so difficult to catch him. Immediately, Mubarak confessed to the crime and rooted out his accomplice, Reliwan, when they were now taken back to the crime scene to, interact or show them how they were able to get into the house and how they were able to successfully steal this woman's phone and kill her. It's just so heartbreaking that this woman clearly did not ask for this. All she did was give another woman a job. And obviously, it would be unfair to blame the mother of Mubarak, saying that she probably did not know her son was capable of this. But then, Mrs. Sadikat did not deserve what happened to her. If she probably knew her son was a thief or who was fond of stealing, she probably should have not have brought this boy to another woman's house. But like a lot of parents would say, children change. Like, you can teach your child all the right thing in the world. You can teach your child to be good. You can teach your child not to steal. You can lead by example by showing them how to work hard But somehow, a child will grow up to be who he wants to be. The worst part is that they only wanted a mobile phone. That is something that they could have easily stolen. That is something that they could have pretty much just stolen. Since in my mind, I would assume the reason why they probably physically attacked her was because obviously she would recognize Mubarak. I don't know if she would recognize Reliwan, but she would most likely recognize the son of the house manager. And I guess that could be a good reason, or not really a good reason, but I guess that could be one of the motives behind them trying to want to end her life. However, if they really needed to steal that bad, you could have just sent the other boy in. You would have just given Reliwan the information, let him go and steal and bring the phone out. Instead of you having to put yourself in a situation where you know it's either she exposes you or you have no option than to shut her up forever. At least, if they catch Reliwan, nobody can root him back to you unless he's caught. He can probably run away. And over time, it will be forgotten. And over time, probably the woman's children will get her a new phone. But the fact that they had to go that extra miles to kill this woman is where a lot of people are having problems with, given their age. Is where a lot of people are frustrated with. It was a mobile phone. It was a Samsung. It wasn't an iPhone. It was an 80,000 naira mobile phone. And I don't know, but an 80,000 naira mobile phone is really not worth it. I don't think there's any mobile phone that is worth having to go and jump over a fence for. But 80,000 naira is just to tell you that this is as low as it gets. This is where we are right now in our society. This is what poverty is doing to a lot of people. That you're willing to take another human being's life, another woman's life. You're willing to take someone's life over an 80,000 naira mobile phone. Shows that we are really getting to a very low place in this society. If this is where we are now, then it's bad. And if this crime is being done by little children, because these are kids, then there is literally no hope. There is no future, because we're talking about them who have been caught. You can imagine how many people who has lost their life for way less and they've not been caught, or the killers or the culprits have not been caught. It's unfortunate and it's very scary. The innocent woman was in her own house, peacefully sleeping, enjoying her nap, probably waiting for her alarm clock to get on so she could go and pick her granddaughter from school. And two broke boys were busy plotting to kill her and steal her mobile phone of 80,000 naira. It's just heartbreaking. I don't know how far he would plan on going with that mobile phone, because I'm sure his mother was going to see. I'm sure people would see him with a mobile phone, unless he planned not to ever come to this woman's house again, or planned not to ever use the phone, or he wanted to sell it. But he was going to be caught eventually. I just don't like the fact that this woman's life was cut short in the process of two stupid boys doing stupid, evil thing. That is just one thing. If you want to steal and then steal very well. But you take it on another level when you decide to kill. That is why crime have different weights. And that is why they will most likely spend the rest of their life in jail.